So, anyway, good morning. Welcome. I am Walt Segura, and I welcome you all to our little home community here at Unity of New Westminster. We're excited to welcome you all and to welcome Alexander Kutchunchuk back to New Westminster. Please stand and join us for our opening song, Jesus Christ Has Risen.
Good morning, everyone. Am I on? Did I remember? It's my fault, Lyle. I forgot to turn my own microphone on. Details, exactly, Joanna. Good morning, everyone. Well, good morning. Welcome to you all on this glorious, glorious Easter Sunday. Welcome to all of you who are joining us here at Unity of New Westminster today. It is lovely to see you all. And if you are joining us online, either live now or sometime in the future, then a very, very warm welcome to each of you on behalf of all of us here in beautiful British Columbia and Unity of New Westminster. Hello, hello, hello. We wish you could be here in person, and we're very happy that you're joining us. I am Reverend Rona Segura, and it is truly my privilege and honor to be the minister of this community of love and fun and support and joy and learning and community. It is so delightful to be here every week. At Unity, and here especially at Unity of New Westminster, we offer empowering ideas for full and abundant living. We draw on the teachings of Jesus, who we consider our primary way shower and example. And we honor that there is wisdom to be found in our life experiences, in song, in movies, in story, in poetry and prose, of course, in our own life experiences, and also in faith traditions all over the planet. We honor every person's right to choose their own personal path. All are welcome here. All are worthy here. All are celebrated here. Let us begin our service today in a time of centering prayer. If it's comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes. We begin by giving thanks that we are on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Kakite First Nation. And we give thanks for First Nation and Indigenous peoples everywhere, for their love and connection to the land. We give thanks that we can join together here today to laugh together, to sing together, to consider new ideas that can inspire us to live a life which is more free, more calm, more connected. We believe that there is only one presence, one power, that creative energy which is understood and worshipped in many ways. Some say God, others say Yahweh. Others call that divine energy Allah, or science, or nature, or the universe. By whatever our understanding for that creative energy, we embrace the idea that there is no spot that God is not. And that includes each and every being on this planet. We are all one, all part of an interconnected whole. And it is from that sense of wholeness and from that sense of oneness that today we extend a blessing for love, for peace, for healing to every being on this planet. We choose to see beyond differences to the shared humanity that we are. And from this intention, from this knowing that our prayer makes a difference, we give thanks and we say Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Rona. I always leave everything behind. I never stopped doing that, even when I was a kid. Is this on? Good. All right. Today's daily word is arise. I arise to accept new life and renewal. Jesus rose above all limitations, transcending darkness to light and death to new life. His overcoming death is the ultimate inspiration and example for humankind, a precious gift of hope and renewal. This Easter, I gratefully accept my renewal as I awaken to the call of the divine. I turn to the Christ presence within me and discover new life and energy, lifting me into higher awareness and understanding of spiritual truth. In so doing, I leave behind that which held me in bondage. I rise above limiting beliefs, habits, and actions. With unwavering faith, I rise to accept inspiring new possibilities and the fullness of God's glorious life, love, and grace. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. By his great mercy, he has given us new life into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. This reading was inspired by the first book of Peter, chapter 1, verse 3.
Today, because we have a special musical presentation, our own Unity New Westminster singers. Because of that, we're going to move directly to meditation. And then after a period of silence with meditation, we'll sing a song together prior to the talk. So I invite you to close your eyes with me if that feels comfortable. As we become aware of our breath, this gift that we receive every day from life, the gift of life. And as we consider the words from today's daily word, I invite you to hear them again. First, though, let us breathe. With every breath, allow your body to sink deeper into your seat, into the couch, onto the bed, onto the floor, whatever is supporting you. With every breath, allow yourself to relax. And trust that you are supported. Imagine now that you are completely safely floating in water that is warm and soothing, that somehow allows you to breathe within it. And be in that warm embrace. And imagine that your thoughts lie on the surface. And that you have sunk beneath them. Grateful that they are there, but paying them no attention. And in this quiet, secure, womb-like place, allow yourself to rest. Completely supported. Completely at ease. this Easter Sunday. What are some of the things that I am ready to allow to rest? What are the things that I allow to be put aside? What are the things that I want to release? And notice that by asking the question, an answer may bubble up. And allow it to float to the surface and drift away. Now ask the question, what am I on this Easter Sunday ready to welcome into my life? What am I ready to allow to emerge? Notice that you may have an idea that bubbles up. Welcome it. Give it space. And as we move to a time of silence, embrace that new life. What am I ready to welcome into my life? And let us sing. Morning is morning is Isn't it lovely having Alexander back? Playing on the piano. Every year, at Easter time, I reread the Easter stories. And every year, I find a new appreciation to the point where I think it has now become my favorite scripture story. And the more I think about it, the more I think that the Easter story gives us a perspective, a roadmap, if you will, on how we can transition our own lives when we are challenged by a crisis, how we can navigate through a crisis, whether it be a change in circumstance, whether it be our own recognition that something no longer serves us and it's time for change, whether it's in our control or outside of our control. The Easter story of life and death and new life, resurrection, offers us a process that we can follow as we move ourselves from life to life. Before we begin to look at that path, let's take a few minutes to review the Easter story. It starts, in most understandings, with Holy Week, which begins on Palm Sunday, which we celebrated last week with the idea of Jesus entering Jerusalem to the acclaim and adoration of the crowds as they welcome Jesus as their Messiah, as the person who is going to deliver them from the occupation of the Romans. And we discussed last week how Jesus upended that entire idea because on that same day, he turned over the tables at the temple, and in so doing, brought attention to himself to the point that the religious leadership, in consideration perhaps of the rest of the people and their wholeness and their health and their security, decided that Jesus must die. Jesus himself, in the week of Holy Week, continues his own ministry. He continues to teach and to heal. On the Tuesday, bless you, on the Tuesday of Holy Week, he is called in front of the religious leadership and questioned. And they can't make sense of this man. And so they decide he has to go. And what happens is on Maundy Thursday, what we now call Maundy Thursday, the day before Jesus is executed, Jesus gives thanks and shares a last meal with his disciples, what we call the Last Supper. And at that Last Supper, he washes the feet of his disciples. He breaks bread with them and gives thanks. He reminds them to think of him often as they eat and drink. And then he gives us one final commandment, that we love one another. He tells Judas, his best friend, one of his trusted companions, to do what he has to do quickly. After supper, They go to the Garden of Gethsemane. And this is the time, as you might appreciate, that Jesus is facing a personal crisis. Who, knowing what's going to be coming ahead, wants to face that? And so in the Garden of Gethsemane, he asks his friends to stay awake with him 3 times. And 3 times they fall back to sleep. He prays. And in that prayer, he asks God to take this cup away from him. Does not want to do this. And then at some point, he recognizes that the path he is on is the path he must take. And so he surrenders. And after his own internal struggle, he finally resigns himself to the change with the words, "Not my will, but thine be done." Judas, his friend, leads a group of priests and soldiers into the Garden of Gethsemane. He kisses Jesus. And in a fit of righteous anger, one of his other disciples, Simon Peter, cuts off the ear of the servant of one of the high priests. And Jesus heals the servant's ear in the midst of being arrested before allowing himself to be led away. The following day, he is tried again 3 times. 3 times by the Roman leadership, 3 times by the Jewish religious leadership. And in all of those times, Jesus refuses to do anything to save himself. After he is whipped, the people, the Jewish people, have the opportunity to have him saved. It is Passover, and one of the Passover traditions is that a person who is scheduled to be executed is allowed to be freed. And the people choose a common criminal named Barabbas to be freed instead of Jesus. So Jesus is then crucified with 2 other criminals on that day. He speaks words of forgiveness. He says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." From the cross, he offers words of encouragement to one of his fellow prisoners. "Today you will be with me in paradise." He ensures that his mother is taken care of, turning over the care of his mother to the disciple that he loved, which we think was John. In agony, and perhaps as a way to comfort himself, he recites part of Psalm 22 in the Hebrew scriptures written hundreds of years prior. My God, why have you forsaken me?" He complains of thirst. And finally, with the words, "It is finished, and into thy hands I commend my spirit," Jesus dies. His body is taken to the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. And on the 3rd day, it is discovered that the stone that covered the entrance to the tomb has been rolled away, and Jesus is gone. That is the Easter story. I know some of us may have difficulty believing the literal truth of the resurrection, the idea that Jesus died and was lifted and raised from the dead. And if that describes you, that is okay. What I know is that we are energetic beings, that we are still discovering the possibilities of the unknown that we cannot see. And so I am actually willing to consider that it may be true. But if that isn't your appreciation of the story, it's okay. Because regardless of whether we believe that Jesus literally rose from the dead or not, the story contains rich lessons that we can use when we see how he conducted himself in that last week of life. How he went from hero to zero to hero again. And these lessons can help us as we face our own Gethsemane moments. When we are in that place where we're all alone, facing something that appears inevitable, and all we want to do is say, "Take this cup away from me." What can we do when a tragedy occurs, when a loved one passes away, when we receive a diagnosis that we weren't expecting and didn't want? When life throws us a curve, what do we do in these Gethsemane moments? I'll give you steps that all begin with the letter F to make your life easier, and mine. The first thing that we see Jesus do is he faces the situation. What's the first thing that I do when I know something negative is going to happen? Oh my gosh. I want to deny it. I want to bargain it away. I want to pretend it's not going to happen. I will do anything in my power to shift the direction, and yet you can see the direction is not changing. Jesus prayed. He accepted. And rather than waste energy trying to do all things that would argue with reality, instead, when he recognized that this was the path he needed to be on, he chose to face the situation. Rather than waste our energy, rather than deny or argue against the unpleasantness that is facing us, let us choose to do what Jesus did and face whatever is in front of us. And then what did he do? I think of it as faithing it. He recognized that even though he couldn't see the whole picture, that there was some nugget of good that was going to come out of this, that this somehow in all the chaos had order built in. I think of it as the power of the semicolon, which is something that Jerry taught me. It's the idea that everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, then it's not yet the end. It means that in every experience, no matter what our understanding for the name God might be, that within the chaos, there is order. One very powerful affirmation that has stuck with me for years is this quote by Emma Curtis Hopkins, which is, "This too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand to see the blessing in it." In the midst of this crisis, the way that we have the strength to face it is to faith it. To know that something bigger than we can understand is at work in the middle of this situation. Then we come to F number 3, and that is to firm it. Imagine having people yelling at you, calling you names, saying, hey, if you said this, then you could get out of this situation. And through it all, staying calm, staying dignified, holding your own integrity. This is what we see Jesus doing. He's asked if he's the King of the Jews. He says, "You say that I am." He doesn't even try and make an argument about something for which there is no winning the argument. Instead, what he did was continue to love, to have compassion, and to be so strong and so firm in his faith that he didn't need to make any explanation to anyone else. How do we react when we are falsely accused? How do I react to someone else's anger, somebody else's betrayal? I have a tendency to want to take it personally and find some way of letting them know why my intentions were good. Sometimes I want to fight right back. It takes great strength. It takes immense integrity to stand alone with dignity in the face of other people's disappointment, of other people who are wanting us to do things differently. Know your own values. Stand firm in them. F number 4. Feel it. We see that Jesus does 3 things that by today's standards we might call getting closure. We see that what he does is not deny that he is suffering. He didn't say, oh, I'm so spiritual that I'm only going to think good thoughts. Instead, he's very human in his expression of feelings. I am thirsty. I don't want to do this. Take this cup away from me. Even the prayer that he recites, my God, why have you forsaken me? Is not necessarily because he thinks that he was forsaken. I don't believe that At this point, I don't believe that was what Jesus was experiencing. What I think it was Jesus reciting something that is an expression of pain that he was feeling. In these words, then, we have a hint about how to transition from one reality to another in a graceful way. We must feel our feelings. We must acknowledge our hurt. It's one thing to know that this will turn out well in the end. We know that. But it's also true that it hurts now. So feel. Before there can be healing, there must be feeling. And then, F number whatever I'm at. 5, thank you. Forgive it. That's a big F word, isn't it, for people? On the cross, Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Well, think about that. If the Roman soldiers and the Jewish leaders knew that in killing Jesus, that they would put into motion the very thing they were trying to destroy, if they understood that the actions they were taking were going to lead to this birth of a movement that is called Christianity, that by killing him, all of the teachings that Jesus shared with us of love and acceptance were now going to be highlighted and spotlighted, wouldn't they have been smarter just to let the guy rot in jail? You know, a forgotten somebody somewhere? They didn't know what they were doing. But they were part, going back to the faith, they were part of a bigger picture. In the end, each of those players, the person who betrayed Jesus, Pontius Pilate, who washed his hands of trying to make sense of why the Jewish people wanted this man killed, the priests, everyone involved in the story played a major and necessary part in the unfolding of the story. And sometimes the things that appear to be the worst things that happen to us end up being the biggest blessings. As Joseph in the Hebrew scriptures, the story of Joseph who was betrayed by his brothers and sold to slavery in Egypt. What he says is what man intended for harm, God intended for good. By accepting that those who harm us are playing a necessary story, a part in our story, perhaps then we, too, can find a way to be gracious and graceful, and acknowledging that what they did may have been intended for harm, but there is good out there. And if that is true, there's no need for us to hold it against them anymore. Forgiveness does not mean liking what they did. It doesn't mean that you have to marry them. It doesn't mean that they are your best friend. It just means that you don't need to have this weight that's carrying you down, holding on to a grudge that someone else may long ago have forgotten. And part 3 of this closure piece, this closure which is feeling and forgiving, is finishing. Jesus ends up telling his best friend to take care of his mother. There's something about making sure that the book or the chapter is closed gracefully that gives us the freedom to move on. Those of us who have lost loved ones unexpectedly know the guilt and the sadness of the "I wish I'd," or "if only I had." It can be powerfully healing to make sure that before we move to our next reality, whatever it may be, that we make peace with our old situation. Consider whether you've made peace with the people and experiences in your life. If we have unsaid apologies, I invite you to consider making them. If we have words to write that might bring peace, I invite you to consider making those, writing those words. And it can be whether a person is alive or not. Write them. Let us live with no regrets, so that we can move on to the next experience and truly say, "It is finished." In this way, we embrace the next experience fully. And finally, we come to death and the tomb. In this place, we died to the old way. We have now moved into a place where we are going to grieve and heal and start to find new possibilities. It is in this place that we have the saying, when God closes a door, God opens a window, or whatever the saying is. One door is opened, another is closed. One door is closed, another is open. Let me get it right. But nobody tells you that it's hell in the hallway. This is the hallway time. And it's a real time. Anyone who's experienced change knows that after you have left one, and even if you are excited by another, there's a point where life and everything is kind of in turmoil and you're not quite sure how it's going to land. This is the time in the tomb. And one of the best ways that I can illustrate this time in the tomb for us is with the idea of a butterfly. Because before a butterfly is a butterfly, before it even knows that it's the gleam in the mind of a caterpillar, it starts its life as a little caterpillar. And within the caterpillar is something called imaginal discs. And imaginal discs, I actually have multiple imaginal discs. And these are things that caterpillars will never, ever use in their life as a caterpillar. But they're in them. And the caterpillar eats and eats and eats. And if you've ever read Eric Carle's The Very Hungry Caterpillar, then you know he eats and eats and eats, and finally he moves himself into a cocoon. And in this time when the transformation is about to happen, the caterpillar spins its own cocoon and goes inside it, stays inside it. And inside that cocoon, the caterpillar essentially dies. But it doesn't really die. What happens is those imaginal discs that were waiting since before the caterpillar was even a caterpillar, they start to become active. And at first, the old cells eat those imaginal discs, but they keep growing. And eventually, they start to take form. And these imaginal discs that were never used in caterpillar form, but were always within the caterpillar, they start to become wings and the body of a new being. These discs were essentially like pure potential. They were just waiting. Then they multiply. They grow. And when all of the old has been put away, they emerge as a butterfly, free. We come now to Easter Sunday. So this place can be like us too. We essentially have this place in the tomb where we can put the old away so that we can emerge free, beautiful, transcendent, like nothing we ever imagined. This is, for me, what the story of Easter is about. When we are faced with a Gethsemane moment, a crisis, we have an opportunity to choose whether we will be victim or victor. How do we do that? And how do we choose to emerge victorious from the tomb? We follow Jesus' example. We face the situation. We have faith that despite the pain, there will be good in this experience. We stand firm in our integrity. We feel our hurt. We forgive the perceived harm. We finish the unfinished business. And then we form anew. And finally, we emerge to a new freedom. That is resurrection. We are all on our own journeys of many Gethsemane moments that change our lives all the time. We are like beautiful butterflies. Happy resurrection to each of you. I bless you.